Guys, the DMV is so fun. What's not to love about waking up at the brink of dawn, thinking you'll be the first in line when the doors open at 8 a.m. just to see 20 other people having the same idea you have? I don't know about you guys, but the DMV has been a very, interesting place. It's where I got racially profiled for the first time, but more on that later. When I was in high school, I wasn't one of those people who got their permit the millisecond they turned 15 and a half. Heck, by the time I got my permit, my friends already had their licenses. You know, when you first take a permit test, you can only get a certain number of questions wrong before you fail. I live in California, so you can only miss 8 questions out of the 46. And a little thing I like to do while I was taking the test was to count how many questions I got wrong under my desk, because the system literally tells you right away. So when I was taking my test for the first time, I was close to finishing despite already having 7 incorrect answers. But sure enough, with my amazing luck, I literally failed the last question. I was 1 away from passing. 1. But that's not the biggest deal. The DMV allows 2 tries at a later date before you have to pay a fee again. And I successfully managed to get my permit my senior year of high school, even though my friends were already on the road. But hey, I was still proud of myself. Now, all I had to do was learn how to drive. Easy? No, because my parents were absolutely convinced I was going to crash the car every 5 seconds. One time, I was practicing with my dad, and we were approaching an intersection. The light suddenly turned yellow. So, like any normal person, I started slowing down. But my dad suddenly went, "Stop, stop, stop!" And because a grown man was screaming in my ear, I absolutely panicked and slammed on the brakes. The car stopped, and so did my heart. I know that my parents mean well and they just want me to be safe, but they are so nitpicky about every little thing I do on the road. You're too close to the line, you're too far from the line, you're going too fast, or you're going too slow. And at this point, I could be parked in a driveway with the engine off and they'd still find something to critique. I keep trying to reassure them that I know what I'm doing, but they're both incredibly paranoid. Sometimes I wish I had an older sibling who could have gone through all of this first and lowered the difficulty setting for me. But no, I'm an only child, so I was basically the test subject. Another thing the DMV does is issue out state ID cards, to which my parents signed me up for shortly after I got my permit. My dad and I went to the DMV again, waited, and eventually got called up to see a clerk. We went through all of the basics like my name, date of birth, etc. But then she asked to see my permit. Permit, I said? You mean like my written permit? No, your permit. I'm not the best at technicalities when it comes to the DMV, and I was getting confused and a little anxious. I had originally thought she meant I needed to fill out some additional form. My dad was just as confused as me because his English as an immigrant wasn't too good either. Wait, what do you mean a permit? Did I have to fill out a permit online for my ID card? I asked. Then, I swear to God, what happened next made my blood boil. Visually, my dad and I both have black hair, pale skin, and almond eyes, which are very typical East Asian features. Now, whether or not this lady could distinguish what type of Asian I am is another thing, but it's clear that we both just look Asian. She stares me up and down like I personally offended her and impatiently replies, "Do you need a translator?" Bro, do you need a gym membership? I wanted to say that, but I didn't. For some reason, my brain tends to malfunction in public spaces, and I was just at an utter disbelief and like at a loss of words. No, I replied, trying my best to like utter something while still being in complete shock. Because that's what I'm getting here. Are we speaking the same language? Is there something you're not getting at? I've literally lived in California for a good chunk of my life and went to a Californian middle and high school. Like, wow. Okay, rude. My mom would have told her off if she was here, but my dad was just as much of a doormat as I was. Do you mean my written permit? No, I mean the permit you got when you took your written test. Your driver's permit. So, you're telling me a written permit and a driver's permit aren't the same thing? Now, I obviously didn't say that. I didn't want her to call security on me as we were just so close to getting my ID card. I just handed her my documents and stood in perpetual anxiety for the rest of the visit. Maybe I'm being overly dramatic and maybe that woman was just having like a bad morning, but this is still a moment I still think about to this day. Am I wrong for thinking too much of this? But at the same time, I don't think a bad attitude should subject other innocent customers to that same treatment. But as I'm currently making this video, I still don't have my driver's license and I'm still a little nervous going to that same DMV, but I did get my ID card. I'm still practicing with my parents as I'm scripting this video, but I shouldn't feel embarrassed because something isn't coming as easily as it seems to come to everyone else. So hopefully next time I make a DMV video, it will be to tell you that I passed. Yay! Guess what, guys? I'm licensed!